Hello, and welcome to SoberCast, where we provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in podcast format. We're an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into our virtual basket. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Have a great day.
Good morning, fellow alcoholics and friends. My name is Alabam C, and I'm a grateful alcoholic. I didn't get here from drinking a little booze. I got here because I drank like a pig. I'm glad to be here. I've been sick this morning, so if I get sick, I'll just wait. I'll get over it. I've eaten too much up here. You fed me too well. I've been spiritually fed all weekend. It's been a wonderful convention. I was just thinking what a privilege it was to be invited back to a place I've spoken before. You know, when I drank, they didn't invite me back. They would prefer I never came in the first place. I really like being sober. I like AA. I love AA. I don't dislike it. I love AA. And I love the program. I love the people in AA. The sicker they are, the better I love them. And because I came in one of the sicker ones. I got here, I think it was somewhere about 28 years ago. And I think I'll be 29 years sober pretty soon. And I'm impressed. I'm impressed what God and AA could do for me that I couldn't do for myself. And I'm also impressed that I love AA, that I like being here, that I like being sober. There's nothing in the world I like anymore than some sick girl or fella. I don't care at my age, it doesn't matter. It's nothing that I'd rather do than talk to someone who really needs help. And the sicker they are, the better I understand them. Because I was one of the sicker ones when I came. And, I still thought I could drink like a lady. It's been a long time since I'd been a lady. And, the people from New York, I was reminded that, I was in New York towards the end of my drinking. I was checked into 2 hotels, 2 of the best, 2 of the most expensive, and staying in another one part-time. You can figure that one out. And, but it was my brother had his secretary call trying to find me, and she said, Miss Robinson, it's just too many hotels. He says, honey, you just ask the operator which are the expensive ones, and she'll be there. And she'll be there. You know, and I paid later. And I was there, and the doctor and the nurse in the room. I always had a doctor and a nurse, you know, and in the hotel I was in, I'd get sick. And they would, I wasn't actually sick. I was just drunk, but you know, they call a doctor and a nurse. And I don't know. I really and truly don't know exactly why, but they would put me in the hospital there in New York. The one that, I know the same nurse was there that had treated Bill, but it wasn't the same hospital, of course. It was where they had moved it. They had moved it there in New York, and I stayed there 3 days. They sent a girl from AA, a girl who was in radio from AA over to take care of me, and she took me to the hospital and sponsored me out there. And I always went to a meeting with anybody that would do something nice for me, you know, like that, to show that I had courtesy. And but no idea of not drinking. And finally my brother found me in a hotel. That was the Waldorf, I believe it was, he called in. And he asked them, could they get a nurse or somebody to put me on a plane. They asked the doctor that was in the room. I had to have a doctor often because they wouldn't let me stay in the hotel without having one. And they asked him if he asked if they could put me on the plane, and they said they didn't think they could get me on a plane, that they doubted seriously. And he said, all you have to do is put a fifth in a paper sack, and squash it around it so she'll know it's a fifth. And in those days, we loaded from the field, and you walk her out there on the field and to the steps, and somebody take that fifth and start up the steps, and she'll follow her. She'll follow him and just lay that down on the seat she is to sit in. And that's the way they got me on and off planes, Just crazy. Just absolutely crazy. My family nearly went insane before I did. And, they had instructions to not, let me, even go to the bathroom in St. Louis when we got there, that my nephew that was meeting me was just to put me in the car. I fell off sort of in his arms, on the field when we got there. And they took me to my brother's, office. They wouldn't see me in their homes because they didn't want their children to see their aunt. And they took me there. And they told me they were very sorry, but they were going to have to ask Mother and Daddy to have me incarcerated. And the only places that would take me was the insane asylum, I think. And I said, well, if that's what you have to do, you have to do it. And they said, well, you have started over so many times. And I said, again, I don't know whether I'm through yet. And just awful. I got back to, I'm not going to tell this, like you hear one or two now. Just as I think of it, I'll tell you. And, but what I did though, when I got back there, my brother, had my nephew bring me over to his house for dinner. And, I'd been back for quite a little while, really. And I had to go in the hospital for a little, surgery. It was not malignant or anything. A little breast surgery. And, I stayed 3 weeks in the hospital. They keep you 3 days today, but my family would bribe them into keeping me as long as possible. Because they didn't give me any trouble when I was in the hospital. And, they had me over for dinner, and it was so pleasant, and I thought, I don't need a drink. I'm with people that I enjoy being with, and I've been sober 3 weeks while I was in the hospital, of course. But I didn't normally stay sober in the hospital because I had enough friends that would bring me whiskey in. They owed it to me. And anyhow, what happened was that after I got home, I was in this little apartment, and I had been with people in hospitals, and I hadn't been alone. At my apartment, have you ever felt that the walls would just come in and squeeze you? I felt like that the apartment was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I didn't know anything to do but to call up and order a case of whiskey. That was my only answer to anything. And so I started drinking, and I drank for 5 days and nights, I understand. I didn't eat anything because, it ruins the glow. And a woman came to call me up and asked if she could come over. And I said, no, I'm dressing to go to work. I hadn't worked in 6 months, and just occasionally then in my family's business. And I said, I can't take any more time with you because I'm getting dressed to go to work. And so help me God, I was out of bed, putting on a suit to go to work, and I didn't have a job. And besides, it was 7 o'clock at night, and not 7 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't know the difference. In Missouri, it's dark both times. And I didn't know the difference. And the woman said she wouldn't detain me from my job. She just wouldn't detain me. but let her come over for a few minutes. And I said, okay, but I must rush to get to work. And she came over and she said, Alabama, please come go home with me. Please come go home with me. We want to help you. And I said, honey, I will go home with you if you'll let me take a bottle. And she said, I won't let you take a bottle, but I'll buy a bottle of my own. And we'll give you whiskey when you need it. But you can't take a bottle of yours because you don't know when you need it. She had to call me in because some of their wives came because there was only one other girl in town, one other woman in this little town of Sedalia, Missouri. And bless her sweetheart, she had been a streetwalker. And do you know those men had more respect for her than me? They did, really. They did. And they took me to her house. And then the next morning they were started to, the wives came over to help take care of me because they just were, but these two women in town. And they found out that they could get me into Independence, Missouri. Now, I want to describe the place before, it won't be a shock to you when I tell you about it. It was upstairs. But first, it was on Skid Row. Independence has a Skid Row. And it was upstairs. And, it was for men only. And, but it was nowhere to take me. Hospitals won't take me. They said that they had me before. And they wouldn't take me. And, there was a man, Dr. Nason in Kansas City, Missouri, that had known Dr. Bob and Bill, but Dr. Bob had taught Dr. Nason a lot about detoxing, and then Dr. Nason learned even more about it than Dr. Bob knew when he died, about detoxing the alcoholic. And so they wanted to get me, they couldn't take me there to Kansas City, Kansas, because it was on the third floor of the clubhouse, and it was for men only. Well, it was for men only in Independence, but nobody had ever said it was for men only there. And they took me to this place, and as I told you, it was on Skid Row there. And it was crummy. It was real crummy. There were 12 men and me in this upstairs, in this building. There was one bathroom. And you can imagine what it looked like. You can just imagine, look all around it on the walls at the top. One toilet. And there I am. And nobody could handle me except the man. And the man stayed with me 5 days and nights. They brought him a reclining chair so he could rest. His name was Walt. Walt's dead now. He was one of the finest amiums I have ever known in my life. He worked with so many people, and he taught me everything that I really knew about AA. And he told me that I must get well because people had done so much for me that I must get well so I could start treating some of the girls like the men were treating the men. And that they taught me everything that they knew about detoxifying an alcoholic so that as soon as I was well enough that I could start detoxification with the girls. And Walt stayed with me because the doctor told Walt that if I lived, he was afraid I was going to have a wet brain, but I likely would die of a heart attack first, that he had never seen a woman get well that was as sick as I was. And Walt said that they prayed, and they prayed that God would restore me to sanity and remove the obsession for me to drink on a lifetime basis, a day at a time. And Walt asked me to say it, and I said, Walt, you know I can't remember that much. And I couldn't. And Walt said, honey, you don't have to remember it. Just ask God to hear our prayers that we are making for you. And at the end of the 5th day that I was there, I had heard the prognosis. I wasn't surprised. Not at all. But the third day I was there, I was in that dirty bathroom, and you can see the walls, you know, because they'd missed the toilet bowl. And you could see how dirty it was in there and all around the toilet bowl. And it was in that dirty place that I had my spiritual awakening. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. I heard God say to me that I could be sober and I could be saved on a lifetime basis the day of the time. And see, that's what my sponsor told me, but I heard God say it. And I didn't care who didn't believe me, because I heard him. And I went up the hall saying that God told me I could be sober and I could be saved on a lifetime basis the day of the time. They ran and got Walt and said, come here quickly, she's gone totally insane, Walt. And they said, well, what's she doing? He said, what's she doing? And then they told him, you know. He said, no, that's the same as she's ever been. And so I lay down when we went into the, that's where I had my spiritual awakening in that dirty toilet room, you know. And I lay down on the bed. And I think God just knows what each of us need. One spiritual awakening, I don't think would have handled it for me. I doubt it. So I lay down and I had an out-of-body experience. And I'm so grateful for that too. I'm just so grateful for it. Walt told me that God must have loved me a lot to give me the second out-of-body experience, you know. And from that day on, I knew I could get well. I was still a very sick woman, you understand, but I knew I could get well. I knew if these men, like Walt and Dr. Nason and John Brooks and all those old-timers, God, they were wonderful people. I knew if these men could make it, I could make it. And there weren't any women that knew how to take care of a drunk. And so the men had to do it. And do you know, no brothers could have been kinder than the men in the, that were in this hospital. They just took care of me like I was their loving sister. And that's what I became with all the men in AA. And I stayed there for nearly 2 months because they didn't think I was to do very well out. And I wouldn't have at the time. And while I was there, my father died. And I was dying, and they thought it was best I not go home. And Mother said that this was them to do what was best for me. That Daddy was very pleased to know that I was in the hospital and that I was getting well. And as I said, I stayed there 2 weeks, and not 2 weeks, 2 months. And that one of the fellows went to Walt and said, Walt, would it look bad if I took her in the bathroom and washed her hair? She said she just can't stand her hair that's dirty. And Walt said, we don't care what looks are. We care what the motive is. And he said, yes, you certainly can. You certainly can. And I get goosebumps because, you know, I was a sick woman. And those men just treated me like I was a queen. And I loved them for it. My brother came up to see me, and he brought a stack of bills that high. And I said, why are you bringing those here? And he said, because I want you to write to people. And I said, what do you want me to say to them? And you tell them that you've been suffering from a disease. You've been ill. And I said, what shall I say? You know, I thought he'd give me a good answer. What shall I say I've been ill from? And my brother said, why don't you try alcoholism? He had me write every one of those people, and I said, now what shall I say? And you just say, I've been suffering from a disease called alcoholism, and that I won't be well enough to go to work for a couple of months. But when I go to work, I'm going to send you small payments on these bills. And you know, some of those bills ran up to $1,000. But I said I would send them a small payment, so they would know. And I said, and when my state is settled, and that was 7 years in, when my state's settled, I'll pay it all. And I wrote those letters. And then my brother, I had to go to work. My sponsor said, my brother said he'd get me a job. And he got me a job with the state. And my sponsor, Walt, said I couldn't take it. And I said, why, Walt? And he said, because I'm a taxpayer. I don't know about sponsorship last year, but that's the kind of sponsorship I tried to give. That's the kind I tried to give because it worked for me. They got me a job in working for a cat's drug company. I had to stand all day long on a terrace floor and sell phonograph records. And I was told to smile at the customers. And Walt would send somebody up to watch me to see if I was doing well on my job and if I was smiling and nice to the customers. And I knew when the spies came in. And then he would send somebody up to walk me home because they had a whiskey department there. To walk me, not home, walk me back to the clubhouse. Now then I have my own apartment 2 or 3 blocks away from where I got sober. And I worked for them for 2 years. They told me if I didn't work for the same company 2 years, that my recommendation wouldn't be any good. You know, I believed everything they said. I was so sick I didn't know any better. And I never had worked except for family. I'd been hostess for a mining company. My husband was a mining engineer, gold mining, and I like gold. And I was the company hostess, and that's another story, but I guess I better tell you. I'd done a good job as a wife and as a hostess for the gold mine. And with the board, I got to travel with my husband, and you know, the board members all had yachts, and they belonged to the finest country clubs in New York, and they had places in the Poconos for hunting and fishing. It was just a great life, you know. And I was always invited when they had him come back on business. They said, bring Mrs. Brown. And I went with them, and they all liked me. They seemed to all like me rather. And so when they would go, the board of directors were coming in, I planned the dinner parties, and they thought I was making such a great hostess. Everything was going fine until I had just a little bit too much to drink. And one of the waitresses came up and she said, Miss Brown, have you seen the New American Dollar? And I said, no, I haven't. I didn't know they had printed a new one this year. And she opened up her hand and she said, here it is with the taxes there. And there was a nickel there. Now when you're drunk, something like that sounds funny. You know, but I'm telling you, it doesn't sound a bit funny. And it didn't end up being a bit funny. So I put the nickel in my other hand and I asked the chairman of the board if he had seen the New American Dollar. And he said no, and I said, well, here it is with the taxes there. And he looked at me and he said, Evelyn, I didn't know you had communistic ideas. You don't say that to a Southern gal. I took his inventory better than it's ever been taken. Starting with son of a bitch. And my husband was trying to shoot me and I said, no, he needs to hear this. And so that was the last time they ever had a mixed party because they couldn't insult my husband by not inviting me. And it didn't make it too easy for my husband, I can tell you that, but they kept him in spite of me. He was a wonderful man. Wonderful man. He died before I got sober. And if he had lived, I might not have gotten sober because he was quite a bit older than I. And he did things that he thought to be right for me, you know, like sending me to great hospitals and good doctors and all of those things. But see, when he died, he was dead a year before I got sober, and I was out there drinking more and more. And my family had been told by my sponsor to quit sending me to these expensive hospitals and so forth. Just to quit sending me, let me be like any other drunk without a job. And my sponsor took my inventory when I was incapable of taking it. He had me write an inventory, and then he had me do a word inventory with him. I'd never heard of a word inventory, but he didn't think I was able to take much more. And, he said, like thief, Alabam, write down thief. And I said, Walt, I'm not a thief. And he said, Alabam, you said you went out with married men. You're a thief, Alabam. That's a thief. And, I hadn't stolen any money or anything like that. Didn't have to. And, so, he kept taking my inventory. Then he said, write down a lie. And I said, Walt, I exaggerate sometimes, but I'm not a liar. You know that man took the most thorough inventory I ever had. And, he said, I don't want to take your sex inventory. And I don't want you, you're an Episcopalian, aren't you? And I said, yes. He said, let me call the Episcopal priest to come over and talk to you. He said, I would prefer that you not take your inventory. We just had 2 girls in our group there. I prefer that you take your, inventory with a priest. These girls have not had the advantages that you've had. and so forth and so on. And so he called the priest over and he said, I want you to take your sex inventory with him, and I want you to take your financial inventory with him. And, the priest told me I wasn't bad. He told me I was sick. That I was sick, and that if I stayed in AA, I could get well. And he said that, but you're not a bad woman, remember that. You're a sick woman. And you're here to get well in AA. You're here to get well. And, he made me feel like I could be whole again. He made me feel that I had not done anything that a lot of other people had done. I thought I was the only person that had done some of the things that I had done. Well, I went to work, and I just can't stay on a job without trying to work my way to the top, and that's what I was doing. And they promoted me and gave me better salaries and so forth. And I had been told that a reference would not be any good if I didn't work for 2 years at the same place. Have you ever heard of anything so foolish? But that's the way they told me, They didn't allow me to do my own thinking. And so I stayed there for 2 years, and then I went and told the manager of the store that I was leaving. They had promoted me, and I was head of my department. And they said, please don't leave without going to headquarters and talk to them at headquarters. They got some plans for you, Alabam. And I went over and I talked to them, and they were going to give me a very good job with the company. They're going to put me in charge of all the records companies in all of the cat drug companies. And I said, thank you, but no thank you. I'm going to California. And they said, but we're offering you this wonderful job with this salary. I said, I'm going to California. I've already told you. And just pay me what you owe me, and I'm leaving. And I came out to California, and I've always been very grateful for that because there were a lot of nice women in AA in California. The southern women were a little bit more reluctant to go to the AA meetings, People would talk about them. I just didn't care. I just didn't care because I didn't care who knew I went to AA. And it didn't make any difference who knew it because they would save my life. My family loves AA. They just think the only thing in the world for anybody to do is, if they have a problem, is to go to AA, And my mother visited me in California. And, of all the people we had, the woman that had invited to speak, they invited a man that had been in the mental hospital to talk. And Mama turned to me and she said, honey, he's still sick, isn't he? And I said, yes, Mama, sicker than anybody in this room. And she understood it, though. She understood it, and she loved my friends. She just loved my friends, and they loved her. And my mother, you know, she was the kind of woman, it happens to me a lot with my hair gray now, but my mother was the kind of woman that on a plane or a train, she attracted people. And if they had a problem, they came and sat by her and talked to her, you know. And my mother told them all about AA everywhere she went. And, you know, I think that she's brought people into AA too. She's brought people into the house and sobered them up, you know, because she asked me how to do it, and I told her. And there's nothing in the world that I like better than making a call on a real sick drunk. There's nothing I like better. And if you've never done it, ask your sponsor to take you with them. My sponsor took me with them until I learned. Well, I'll tell you one reason it took me so much is because I was a woman, and that they just had men to call on the women. So I went along for looks of it until they could teach me what to say and do. And so by the time I got to California, I knew how to make a 12-step call. And I taught the girls that I sponsored how to make 12-step calls. And we'd go out any time, day or night, when we got a call. It didn't matter. We've been out in not snowstorms, in storms where, you know, it was raining and thundering and lightning, and the roads were so slippery we'd spin around on them, you know, and everything. And it didn't matter, though. We took the message whether they wanted it or not, you know. And well, I remember one of the 12-step calls I made. I didn't tell the girls I was going. I decided I'd just take a cab and go by myself, because the girls said that we all agreed we wouldn't go back to see that woman. We had done everything we could do. I couldn't sleep. I thought there is something that we have left undone. Something we've left undone. I won't call them. I'll just call a cab. And I'll go. And I went over. I never had noticed her sofa very much. We'd been there the day before, incidentally. We'd been there the day before, and we called the police, and we asked the police could they get her in the hospital. We couldn't, because we had tried. And we told the police how sick she was and everything, but they still wouldn't do anything. I never had noticed her sofa, but I happened to look at that before I went in her bedroom when I got over there. And you know, there was a hole that deep in her sofa, you know, a burn. And I thought, okay. I went to the kitchen, I got me a knife, and I cut the burned hole out some more. And I poured water in it and messed it all up, you know, with the old burn. And I went to the police and I said, I have just arrived in this house, and this woman that we tried to get you to put in the hospital last night has endangered this whole neighborhood. You better come get her right away and put her in the hospital. You know, it didn't bother me to lie. It just didn't bother me a particle, because I felt that I was doing something good. And she got well, too. We've been on lots and lots of 12-step calls. I went to the prisons a lot. Some of my best friends were in a prison. And when they came out of prison, I think a lot of you know Johnny from down south. And he's one of the best friends I've got in AA, and the drums are good friends that I have in AA. And I have been to a lot of prisons. I carried the message to the men's side as well as the women's side, and I love doing that prison work. I just loved it. And they were good to me in the prisons. They real good. And they seemingly liked for me to come. And And I like going, and I like trying to carry the message. And I knew but for the grace of God, I would have been there. One night we went on a 12-step call that I had gotten, two girls. Two of us went, and, you know, a woman was coming at me with a knife on the second floor, kind of patio-like thing, or whatever you call it, overhang. And she was coming at me with a knife, and you know, I was frightened. You can't let a drunk know you're frightened. And I said, honey, it's Alabam, and I come to help you. Give me the knife, please. Please, just give me the knife. And you know, she finally gave it to me. And I went in her bedroom to get her a robe to put on. She was out on the balcony, undressed, let's say. And I went in her bedroom to get her a robe, and I looked over there, and it was a man from the club in her bed. And I had a knife in my hand. And I told him I'd incapacitate him for life if he wasn't out of there in 5 minutes. And if I ever heard of him making a 12-step call on a woman in AA that called into that North Hollywood club, that I'd kill him. And you know, I believe he believed me. I was that ready to that night. And, you know, people asked me what I read. I said, no, I had the knife. You know, I'm real sorry that so many people go to these, you know, $25,000 charge deals, at hospitals. I'm so sorry that there's not more, 12-step work like that to do. Because I believe if they had I've been in hospitals all over the country in New York. I've been 3 weeks at the time, twice in St. John's, in Beverly Hills. You know, the most expensive hotels in the country, with doctors and psychiatrists. Finally, a psychiatrist said, you don't need me. Your problem's alcohol. You don't have any deep-seated emotional problems. You're just a regular alcoholic. And I was real glad to hear those words, but that meant I couldn't drink. And, you know, and I thought, well, maybe I've overdone this thing. Maybe I've just tried to, you know, sound normal. I had been in, we had a place called Showers Drive. Bill, do you remember that? Showers, yes, Bill will know it. Showers Drive. I had been in that on several occasions. Dirtiest place I ever was in my life. And, Sarah got run out of town. I'm pretty sure it didn't have anything to do with alcoholism. I think there were young kids involved. And, he got run out of town, but, you know, he sobered people up with formaldehyde. Have you ever smelled it? You've missed something if you've never smelled formaldehyde. That's the way we sobered people up. And, I don't know what to do today, except charge $25,000. And, yeah, I'm sick and tired of it. Do you know, you can sober somebody up in 3 days. They keep them there until it's $25,000. And that makes all of the hospital bills go up. And if I got sick, you know, legitimately sick, I'd have to pay far, far more because a lot of those people don't pay that $25,000. I am sick and tired of them spending money like that, you know, and making it more expensive for those of us who are truly sick to go in the hospital. I know for a fact that 3 days you can get sober. In fact, Dr. Nason, possibly knew more about it than anybody except Dr. Bob, how to sober people up. And Dr. Nason taught me everything he knew so I could work with the girls. And I'm so glad that I had that opportunity. I had the opportunity of meeting Bill, but I didn't have the opportunity of meeting Dr. Bob. But I was that back in Akron. I was speaking in Cleveland, and I was driven over to Akron to see the house. And I just felt like that I could just see them there writing the book. The three of them, the Bill and Dr. Bob and the lawyer that did quite a little bit of the writing too. And you know, the house was small. Bill was a big man. I don't see how they all got in that small house. The rooms were extremely small. But I love the place. We all need to send some money back, if we can, to kind of help restore it and keep it in good condition, because it is a landmark. They have made it a national landmark, and I'm grateful for that. I wish I could have known Dr. Bob. He was my kind of man. He loved fast cars and fast horses and all of those kind of things. I knew Bill, but I didn't know Dr. Bob. But the more I read about him, the better I love him. I married after I left. I stayed 2 years like I was supposed to, like my sponsor told me to, in Independence. And then I went to California, and was there I met a man. My husband, I told you, was dead a year before I got sober. And the man that I love best of all over the years. But I met a man, and he wanted to get married, and we got married. And he was killed in an automobile accident. And I was home alone because he was traveling. And I got a phone call one morning, and it was from the same funeral parlor that had buried my first husband in Boulder City, Nevada. And I was living in Bakersfield at the time. And he said that he was sorry to disturb me, but that, you know, he hadn't heard from me, but what disposition to make of the body. And I said, well, I thought that you cremated you. And we just talked in circles, because I thought he was talking about my first husband that had been buried from his place. And he said, are you Evelyn Brown Porter? And I said, yes. He said, you're George Brown's wife that I took care of the funeral services for you. And I said, yes. He said, hadn't you been told your husband was dead? And I said, no. He had been in an automobile accident. He died instantly, they said, as well as they knew. And I tell you something, I stood there with that phone in the hand, and I remembered that I had a bottle in the kitchen, a bottle that had never been opened. It was for us to take when people were sick, you know, and if they needed some whiskey. And I thought about it. I could go in there and I could drink that pint, and I wouldn't have to remember that Jim was killed. I could forget for a little while that Jim was dead. And I stood there in that living room holding on to that phone still. And I finally said, thank you, God. I don't have to drink today. But when I said it, I want you to know that I had no idea that I could keep from drinking tomorrow. But I knew one day at a time I could not drink today. And I said, thank you, God, that I don't have to drink today. And I got on the phone and called some friends. And they came over and they said, run, Alabam, run. Run next door. And I said, I don't have to run. I don't have to run. I'm okay. I'm okay. And they came to me, and everything went fine for a little while. And at the end of 2 weeks, two of the men over at the club said, Alabam, after this meeting, we want you to go to dinner with us. And I said, I can't eat solid food. I can't swallow it. The Jim died. They said, Alabam, we'll fix that. We'll cut it in small pieces for you. I said, I just can't eat it. They said, we'll spoon feed you. You're going to eat, Alabam. You are going to eat. And he said, you know, that poor me is going to be pouring me a drink soon. Real soon. And we love you, Alabam. And we love Jim. And for Jim's sake, we're going to see that you don't do that poor me anymore. And they took me home and they said that if I was uncomfortable in my girdle, I better go and change into something comfortable. That they might be there all night long. And they were there until 7 o'clock the next morning taking my inventory. And telling me what I was to do to stay sober. Thank God for me and the cat enough. Thank God for me and the cat enough to take my inventory. To chance the fact I'd never speak to him again. And they suggested that I take a girl that didn't have any place, that parents didn't understand her, that I take this girl in the house with me and help her, that she needed help to stay sober. I not only got her, but she had a boyfriend that was a drunk. And we fed him, but he didn't sleep over. And, but I fed him. They knew, these men knew exactly that all they needed to do was for me to try to help another alcoholic, and I would get out of cell somewhat. And I did. I love these men till the day I die, because they loved me enough to take a chance that I would never speak to them again. They took a harsh inventory of me. It was a true inventory, let's say, of me. And with the help of them, and the girl living there with me for quite a little while, and I helping her and working with her boyfriend, I got through it. And I moved to Southern California. And I married again. And he is dead. However, we were separated. And he was married to another woman when he died. And I was very grateful that we had been friends, even though we were separated. That we had been friends, because he was a nice man, but we just didn't have enough in common. We were raised entirely different. And, I guess I thought that that all alcoholics were the same, or something. I don't know. But he married a non-alcoholic, and he died just a few months ago. He died of a heart attack. And he was very happily married, and I've always been so grateful that I didn't spoil his whole life, because I wasn't happily married to him. And I've been happily married twice, which I think is a pretty good record. But thank God I don't have to marry again. But you see, I can't carry the message everywhere I want to, I can go anywhere all night long. If I want to go and stay with a drunk, I can go and stay with a drunk. Sometimes husbands don't like their wives to leave that often, And I managed the North Hollywood group for over 20 years, I think it was. And I just retired last year. They gave me a big roast. Oh, God, were they rough. And they gave me a big roast. They had to turn people away. It was a luncheon and a roast. And you get Clancy and Johnny Harris and Mike Ross and a few of those people up there roasting you. You've had it. But I knew they loved me. Because people came from many places for that roast. And I live just 3 blocks from the club. And I'm available to carry the message, to any alcoholic that's sick. If there's somebody down at the club that's real sick, they'll call me and tell them, why don't you come on down here and talk to this alcoholic? She's pretty sick. And nothing suits me better than to go down to that club and talk to that alcoholic woman. I do love to see people get sober. I love to watch them get sober. I don't care whether I made the call or somebody else. But it's just a miracle. It's just a miracle to see people get sober. What time am I to speak to? It says on that thing, if you'll get it out, what does it say? Till 12:15? Oh my gosh, I've got more time than I need. I could talk all day because, Alcoholics Anonymous is my love. You know, I've had love affairs in my life, but never one that lasted as long as this. I'm so fortunate I got invited to, you know, around the countryside, and I love it. And we got so many meetings there in California, and I go to the prisons, and I went the other day. I couldn't go as often when I was working. But I can go again, you know, any day anybody's going to the penitentiary. And that's where some of my best friends came from. And my closest friends, the best AA members I know, a good many of them are out of the Tehachapi, you know, prison. I love being sober. I love talking to them when they come out. And I love going into the prison and talking. And every time I go by a prison or in a prison, I thank God that I didn't do something that got me there. That I didn't do something that got me there. And the only trouble I really could have gotten in was with the RAS. I haven't talked to them since my husband died. I don't plan to. I talked to this priest about it, and he said, Alabam, do you have the money to pay the RAS what your husband owed them when he died? And I said, no, sir, I do not. And he said, I just sort of forget that I knew that. He said, you know, now this is what the priest told me, not an AA member. I don't know that an AA member would have gone this far. But he told me that since I had lived in California and in Boulder City, Nevada, that they wouldn't connect Evelyn Brown, whatever last name I had then, that they wouldn't connect that with George M. Brown from Boulder City. Maybe they'd never connected it. And they never did. They never did. And I am so grateful because my husband had become a chronic gambler. And it's more expensive than being an alcoholic. You know, because he didn't play the slot machine, you understand? He sometimes won a lot. I just drank. You know, I just drank. They just feed me all the free whiskey I wanted, so I'd stay there and I'd take him home. You know, and I'm grateful that I drank all I wanted. I'm grateful that I have drunk in some of the finest places in the United States and some out of the United States, and that I got in those good-looking sewerage places. But, you know, it's all the same. It's all the same. I drank at the end. I just took the bottle to bed with me and put one under the bed in case I dropped the one from the bed. And, I had a whole case of whiskey when these women took me to their house. I had a whole case of whiskey there because I didn't know how much it was going to take. And, I wasn't trying to kill myself. I just didn't want to have to face anything, you understand? I just didn't want to know what was happening. And, I'm so grateful that I had a sponsor that made me write my inventory. I wasn't very good at it, but that sponsor would just fill in the words for me, you know. And he told me, said, Alabam, you're going to have to write an honest inventory. And I said, who's going to read it? And he said, I am. And I said, all right. And then I did take that honest inventory with him, as much as I was capable of then. But you know something? Over the years as I have spoken, I just about taken my inventory again. You know, completely. Whatever is appropriate from the podium. You know. And I'm real grateful. I'm real grateful that they insisted that I better take another inventory. And I take some short inventories still, because just the fact that I've been sober 39 years is not enough. I got to work these steps just like anybody else. I got to continue reading this book because I forget what I have read sometimes. And I most often forget what I'm not doing right, you know. But I got friends that love me enough to tell me. You know, if I get off base, I've got enough people I sponsor, I could kill them. And still, I know they're doing the right thing. But you know, they just pick me up on little things, you know, that I have overlooked. You know, and they'll say, Alabam, you better watch that. You know, God, it's good to have people that love you enough that they feel free to take your inventory. And that's true love, really, because, you know, I could just hate those girls. But I don't. The more they help me, the better I love them. We all miss the 12 steps. We don't get that many calls down at the North Hollywood group anymore because they're going on to the hospitals, as I said. I think that there are many people that need the hospital, but that, you know, like I said, that it takes 3 days to sober an alcoholic up, and a good drug can do it for another drug. You know, I can't stand the formaldehyde, but other than that, I'm willing to go in and try to help sober somebody up, you know. And I try to work these principles in this program. And, you know, I get real lax at times. And I got a friend or two that will tell me when I am. You know, Alabam, you better get with it. You're not doing as much 12-step work now. And you're not working on a daily basis with alcoholics like you did for 20 years. You better not forget where you came from, Alabam. I'm so grateful they care enough to take my inventory. You know, they don't even say, may I take your inventory? But I love them for it. I love the step study book. I love the step study. We have also a book study, and I love that. And I love everything, every grapevine that comes out. I can't wait till one gets there, and I read it through, you know, the same evening. And I don't know about you, but I just wish that we had lots more literature to read, because I've read it over and over and over. I think that of all of the things that I have ever done in my life, the most rewarding things has been when I tried to help a sick alcoholic. I don't care what walk of life they come from or anything. When I went to my first AA meeting in North Hollywood, I was in Showers Dry. I went to get out of the dry to get me a bottle so I could sober up with it. Because that man didn't have sense enough to know that you sober an alcoholic up with alcohol. You know, he was using formaldehyde and something, and I wasn't going to let him do it with me. And so a man who is now dead but was sober asked the doctor if he might come over and pick up some of us and take us to a meeting. I'm going to tell you something. I did not want an AA meeting, but I wanted to get out of that dirty place I was in and get me a bottle and take care of myself and get myself sober, you know, my way. And I decided that I didn't have the proper clothes with me to go to a social event. So I called back in Boulder City and not Boulder City, I called back in, wherever I was living then, it doesn't matter. Las Vegas. And I asked the store that I did business with to have the people that they buy from send me out an understated navy blue suit. That I was going to a social event. And I wanted to be properly dressed. And so there I am in this dirty, dirty place called Showers Dry. I don't think they ever cleaned it. And there I am, and I'm getting dressed to go out to the meeting. Well, on the way, I asked them to stop at the whiskey store in Laurel Canyon. And they said they couldn't do that. They were taking me to a meeting. I said, just put me out there and I'll get to the meeting myself. And they decided it was better to stop at the whiskey store and let me go in than not to go to the meeting. And I bought a fifth to drink, for me to drink, and a fifth to hide somewhere in the yard over at the sanitarium when I got back. And I brought one in with me. I had a very big kind of carpet bag, and I brought one in, and I went to the bathroom pretty often because the meeting got better the more I drank. And they had a sign up there that flickered on and off, on and off. We care, we care, we care. And I said to the man that took me, who in the hell cares? Whether an alcoholic cares or not. And he said, someday you will care. Someday you will care. That light flickered on and off. And a woman got up and said she had been in jail for drunk driving. A woman beautifully groomed, whose husband was the director over at the CBS, and she told about being in jail. And I thought, oh gosh, doesn't somebody tell them you don't tell things like that in public? And, so help God, I've never been in jail except to get other people out. I don't know how I missed it. There were people that took care of me. That's the way I missed it. There was always somebody that took care of me. And when the police stopped me when I was driving, I said, oh, I am so grateful you stopped me. I am not well enough to be driving. I wonder, could you call another policeman and let him drive my car and you take me home? And so help me God, it worked. It worked. My brother told the policeman in Sedalia, Missouri, if they didn't quit letting me drive drunk, that he was going to have them arrested. And so they did. They take me home, and everything. And they said, but she's such a nice lady, Dan. Just such a nice lady. Dan said she's a drunk. So, in New York, they got one real wide street there. And I didn't feel like it would be safe for me to walk across that street by myself because that I might faint or something. So I just asked a policeman, would they escort me across the street? I was afraid I'd go pass out in the town and get killed. And they did. They did. And if you'll go to the policeman first and tell them how much you need them, they don't lock you up. I've never been in jail. And I have deserved to be in jail for driving drunk. But I put the car, I came to, let's say, driving the car. I didn't drive the car to the party we went to. It was my car. But I didn't drive because I had been drinking before I went to the party. I have absolutely no recollection of driving, getting into that car and driving it home until I came to driving the car. And I knew I was too drunk to drive. And I only had about 2 or 3 more blocks to go. I guess I had been driving the car in a blackout. That's the only thing I can think of. And I got it home. And I called my brother's automobile agency and I asked them to come and put my car in storage, that the damn thing wasn't working. And that I didn't want to spend any money on practically a new car, you understand. And they came and got the car and they called me in and said, there's not anything wrong with this car. I said, put it up on whatever, put it up on, I'm not going to drive it for a while. And I put that car in storage because I didn't want to ever be caught out driving drunk. And I could have been caught that night. And I could have killed somebody. God took care of me. I think God takes care of drunks. I think far better than people that don't drink. I have friends that have been very careful all their life and get in trouble, And, I don't know any way that I can ever repay Alcoholics Anonymous. for what they have done for me. But the one thing I do know, that if there's a sick drunk, I'll go see them, and I'll do what I can for them. And I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm so glad. You know, my family are real proud to tell people that I'm in AA. Because, you know, like they heard of me, I was drunk. You know, their friends. And they're glad for their friends to know that I'm in AA. I was going to tell you about my bills. You know, I told you about that stack of bills and my brother having me write all those people. Do you know that I don't owe any of them? That I got every one over a long period of time, that I got every one of my bills paid. And I am grateful to God. And I am grateful that I did not take bankruptcy. I am grateful that I knew that I owed that money. And I knew that my husband owed it. And he had left some money that I finally got, that I could help pay it with. But I paid it slowly. Very slowly, because I didn't make that kind of money. I worked on a lot of jobs. I was not trained to work. You know, I was trained to get married and keep house and so forth and so on. I didn't do much keeping house. I had a maid and a housekeeper. You know, that was a better way. And, I went to North Hollywood, and I worked there, and I loved it because I got to talk to every drunk that came in. There is nothing to me in my life that is more rewarding to me than to talk to one drunk. And I usually take a baby with me so they'll learn how, you know. And I have just loved that. I wrote all of these people, you know, the letters that my brother told me to. And when I was going to get married to the man that was killed in the accident, I went to Bullock's and I said, I owe you all a bill, I think around $1,000. My husband died and the estate is not settled yet. But when it is settled, that whole bill will be paid. In the meantime, I'm going to send small tokens to you like I did to the rest of them. But I'm getting married, and I want a pretty trousseau. And I'm just wondering if you couldn't open up another account just in my name, you know, and not that account where we owe you $1,000. And I wonder if you couldn't open up an account and let me buy some clothes for my trousseau. And the woman talked to me, and she looked, and she saw where I'd sent small payments, and the letters that I had written. She was the credit manager. And she said, I've never quite done this, but I think it would be all right. And so help me God, she let me charge an original dress to be married in that I wanted, the lingerie that I wanted, the shoes, the hat, everything that I wanted. She let me charge it. And, I just think that my sponsors, I didn't like it when my brother and my sponsors said that I was to send those small payments, and everything. I didn't like what they told me to do. Did you like what your sponsors told you to do? No, good. But you did it, didn't you? Or you wouldn't be here sober today, and I did it. Sometimes I grumbled, but I did what I was told to do. And I don't owe anybody except a current bill to date, thank God. I don't know how I did it, but I saved money when I worked. And I didn't make a lot of money, but I started from the very first saving money when I worked. And I kept doing that over the years. I managed a hunting lodge right outside of Oregon, a hunting and fishing club. I managed that for 3 years. It was just a short season. Otherwise, they tried to figure out something I could do all year long. I loved that job because I think Oregon's one of the prettiest places I've ever been in. I just think you are fortunate to live in this gorgeous. God just beautified your country a little extra. And the board tried to find a way that they could keep me on the payroll all year, but it just wasn't anything that they could do with the lodge in the summertime. And it was better. Oh, I forgot to tell you this. I had gone to an AA meeting there, and they said, well, Alabam, now if you should ever need any help, call us at once. Call us at once. So I called them the first opening day of the hunting season, because I have a cook, I have an assistant cook, and I have a waitresses all struck for higher salary. And they'd been paid, just to get things set up and so forth. And the manager of the club, I wasn't manager that year, the manager of the club was going to give them the higher wages. And I said, John, if you do that, they're going to be the bosses from here on out, and you're going to do what they tell you to do. Don't do it. He said, but we've got 40-some odd men coming for dinner tonight, and for breakfast in the morning, and for a week here. I said, John, you go and see if you can find any help at the employment agency. I'll take care of things here. Don't worry. I got on the phone and I called AA. They told me to call them, didn't they? So I called them. I got the principal of the school there. And I said, I need help. And they said, Alabam, what's the problem? And I told them the problem. And they said they'd come right over. Do you know that there was a man there that had worked for A&P, doing all of their, buying of their, cattle and so forth, the meat department? They brought him. They brought the principal of the school. He could wash dishes. They brought a girl that sells insurance, the girl that I had met that sells insurance. She could cook, but the pans were so heavy she couldn't lift them. She was tiny. So there was a man that was strong, and he stood by the stove and took things in and out for her. And they all got busy. And we had a dinner that wouldn't stop by the time the men got there. And the chairman of the board said, I haven't seen any of these people before. And I said, no, they are friends that are working for free. And so he put an apron on and he came back and started helping. And he said, I am so grateful you told John that. I am so grateful because, we can't let people be the boss when they are working for you. And, they were very pleased. And, those people from AA just really seemed to enjoy it. The girl spent the night with me, and the others came back the next morning, and then we got a woman to come in, and we got enough help. But in the meantime, they said, don't ever hesitate to call us anytime you need us. AAs are like that. AAs are like that. And I am so grateful they are. I'm so grateful that we are a fellowship. And we're fortunate to be a part of a fellowship. We're fortunate to have people that love us when we are not lovable. And pray for us. I don't believe that I would have made it through as sick as I was if there hadn't been a lot of prayers for me. I know that God loves us. And I know that without God, I would never have stayed sober. I know a loving God today. I know a God that is with us every minute. Every minute cares what happens to us. I know God looks down upon AA and is happy that every one of us is sober and that we try to carry His message. Because His message and the message of AA is one and the same as far as I'm concerned. I've always loved God as a child. I've always loved Him as a child. But I never really knew, until I was so terribly sick and nearly died, that God could and He would restore us to sanity. That He would restore us to sanity. And since that day, I don't think the day has passed that I haven't thanked God for His gifts to me and to you and to you. I'm so glad to have been here with you. I'm just so happy to see so many of you with the happy faces that I know you love AA. I love AA, and I know you love AA. And I know that you love carrying the message. And I know that if somebody calls for help, that any number of you go right away here because you're an alcoholic. And I know that AA is working good in Oregon because I have met many of you. I have met many of you, and you talk the same talk and walk the same walk that I do. And I'm so grateful. I've loved being with you. I've got, a stepchild back here, Anita. Jenny sponsored her, but I was Jenny's sponsors, and I butted in. And, told Jenny how to do it. And that's the way we do it, And I'm so glad. And then there's Bill from my home group. There's so many from my home group. Do y'all realize that a lot of North Hollywood ites are here and attending your meetings here? They got their sobriety right down there at 4343 Redford. When you're in California, stop in. Stop in. We open at 11 o'clock in the morning. They're trying to run us out of the neighborhood. I think they eventually are going to do it. We're not allowed but 125 people in the building. It seats 240. That's what we were supposed to have all these years. But the neighbors are getting us out as quickly as possible. And that place is has been there for alcoholics, open for over 40 years. And we all regret that we are going to eventually lose it. And we regret that we can't have but 125 people at a meeting now. I'd love to, I'm not going to have time, but I'd love to have gone and seen where y'all meet and have your regular meetings. But maybe you'll invite me back sometime, just come see you and, go to your meeting and listen. I've listened here, and I'm going home with a heart full. And I'm going to try to share some of this love that's been given me here. And I'm going to try to tell them everywhere I go. We got so many meetings in California that if you can stand up at a podium, they ask you to speak. And I'm going to tell them that AA is alive and well in Oregon. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.